All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, the day has finally come as Tom Brady has officially announced that he is walking away from the National Football League. Brady enjoyed one of the most storied careers in professional sports as he walks away from the NFL as a 7 time Super Bowl champion, 5 time Super Bowl MVP, 3 time league MVP. And you want to talk about his other individual stats, more than 84,000 career passing yards and 624 passing touchdowns, which are both far and away the most in league history. A 35-12 playoff record, and with the exception of the 2002 season, every year that Brady was healthy, because remember, he got hurt in 2008, the first game of the season. Every year that he was healthy and he was a starting quarterback for a team, whether it was the Patriots or the Bucks, they were postseason bound. And you look at it, Brady dominated the NFL for 2 decades because what we saw with Brady, we didn't see from other people. And it's going to be tough for anybody to replicate what we just saw from Tom Brady over for his 22 years in the NFL. And when it's all said and done, people will look back and say, not bad for a sixth round pick. And I mean, I watched Brady play at the University of Michigan. I didn't think that he was a first round quarterback, but I was surprised that he lasted as long in the draft process that he did. But that fueled him. Just like he got fueled at Michigan, being that only Michigan and Cal were the only two Power Five schools that offered him a scholarship coming out of high school. And then, when he got his time to start after the graduation of Brian Greasy at quarterback, he had to fight with Drew Henson. And there was a lot of people that really wanted Drew Henson as opposed to Tom Brady, especially how Michigan started during the 98 season. They lost their first 2 games of the year. They lost to Notre Dame and they lost to Syracuse. But then Brady, he did get benched in the Syracuse game, but then he would respond for the rest of the season. Michigan would then go on an 8 game winning streak. They lost to Ohio State in their last regular season game, but then they turned it around and won their bowl game against Arkansas. But nonetheless, Brady, his final year at Michigan, he was an Orange Bowl MVP as Michigan beat Alabama, went on to the NFL, and the rest is history. And of course, Drew Bledsoe was the incumbent at starting quarterback for the New England Patriots. And then following his injury, against the New York Jets in week 2 of the 2001 NFL season, he basically got Wally pipped. We saw Brady take over. Brady went 11-3 that year as a starter. The Patriots won the AFC East. And of course, the rest was history as a legend was beginning to get born. Uh, the moment was never too big for Tom Brady. And, you think back to the 2001 season, the first time that Brady stepped on to the Super Bowl stage. The St. Louis Rams were heavily favored heading into that contest. And I know it was a team effort by the Patriots. You think about the pick six by Ty Law to get the scoring going for the Patriots in the first half. Then late in the first half, the fumble that was recovered by Terrell Buckley. And then, of course, the Patriots offense got going and Brady connected with David Patton in the back of the end zone just prior to the end of the first half to give New England a 14-3 lead at intermission. And then we saw the Rams come back in that game and tie it up. But then Brady drove the Patriots down into field goal range. And of course, Adam Vinatieri kicked the game winning field goal as time expired. But the moment was never too big. We saw Brady go on to win, obviously, more Super Bowls with the Patriots. The last quarterback to win, to go back to back. He did it in 2003 and 2004. But then, of course, the 2007 season that he had for the ages, first and only quarterback to go 16-0. Of course, that big time season that he had with Randy Moss. Brady led the NFL in passing that year, threw 50 touchdowns to just 8 interceptions as the Patriots annihilated everybody en route to another Super Bowl appearance. 8 consecutive trips to the AFC Championship game. And regardless if it's AFC or NFC, that is going to be very tough to replicate. I know that Patrick Mahomes has gotten there the last 4 years, but it's just so difficult. And that's what Brady did from 2011 to 2019. So you knew right off the bat, if you were a teammate of Tom Brady's or you were a fan of the Patriots, you were at least going to be in the conference championship game. That's going to be tough to replicate. 10 Super Bowl appearances, obviously more than any other player or quarterback. John Elway's the next closest with five as far as a quarterback goes. Seven championships. That's going to be tough to replicate. You figure the next two closest quarterbacks are both Terry Bradshaw and Joe Montana with four, respectively. Charles Haley won five championships, of course, two with the 49ers and three as a member of the Dallas Cowboys. But, it's going to be tough to get past Brady with those seven titles. You think about it, Brady and Peyton Manning, they're the only quarterbacks in NFL history to win a Super Bowl championship as a starting quarterback for two different teams. Of course, Peyton did it with the Colts and Broncos, and of course, Tom Brady did it with the Patriots and the Bucks. Brady lasted so long because he knew how to adjust and adapt. And you think about how Brady's game has morphed over the years, and a lot of that can be credited to the conditioning that he put himself through over the years. But nonetheless, Brady went from being a game manager at first, then he just wanted to go deep on you, and then probably about 7 or 8 years ago, it just became all about, just putting talent around him and just basically making it tough to double people and dictate. And in doing so, Brady would just carve up opposing defenses like surgeons. I mean, you think about it, the likes of Rob Gronkowski, a tight end, both in New England and Tampa Bay, just varying receivers around him throughout his time with the New England Patriots. Then you come to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and it's just like, talent and depth at the wide receiver position, talent and depth at the tight end position as well. And, Brady was one of those guys that as soon as he walked into a locker room, that locker room became better. And we saw that when Brady arrived in Tampa Bay last year, because a lot of those guys had already been there. But then you put a guy like Brady into that mix, and it was just like the same thing with Peyton Manning when he went to the Denver Broncos. When Joe Montana when he left the 49ers to go to the Kansas City Chiefs, those type of guys, they walk into a locker room and that locker room gets better. And that's what we saw with Tom Brady. And of course, the rest was history last year as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won the championship. Now, you look at what Brady did, and this guy just basically, not basically, he shut down an entire division for 2 decades. Because when Brady was with the New England Patriots, you figure he was their team, he was their starting quarterback from 2001 to 2019. And of course, you have to omit the 2008 season because he got hurt in week one when he had the ACL injury. But nonetheless, only the Jets in 2002 and only the Dolphins in 2008 won that division. All of those other years from 2001 to 2019, the AFC East was won by the New England Patriots. And generally, when the Patriots won that division, they had at least a first round bye for the most part. So you knew for about 2 decades that the road to the Super Bowl from the AFC went through Foxborough. And you think about it, with those 9 appearances with the Patriots in the Super Bowl, how many times or how many more times would Ben Roethlisberger had an opportunity to get to the Super Bowl, or Peyton Manning, or Philip Rivers? These are guys that were elite quarterbacks on the AFC side during Tom Brady's tenure. And I know, Tom was 2-2 against Peyton Manning in the postseason. They had some great duels. But a guy like Ben Roethlisberger, definitely, and Philly Riv, how many more times would they have had an opportunity to get to the Super Bowl? Or, of course, in the case of Philip Rivers, he never got there. Because if you remember, you go back and look at Philip Rivers' career, of course, it was primarily with the San Diego Chargers. Philip Rivers always seemed to be a thorn in the side of Peyton Manning and the Colts, but he would struggle against Tom Brady and the Patriots. That was always the thing. So it just gives you an idea of the dominance that he had. And Brady, he set the bar so high for quarterbacks because, again, you know, you hear it and you say, okay, like you heard it going into the Super Bowl last year. Is Patrick Mahomes going to catch Tom Brady? Is Patrick Mahomes going to do this? winning championships are not easy. And if they were easy, more people would have them. That's the reason why only one championship is handed out each year. And what Tom Brady did, he made what is difficult look easy, and it's not easy. And I know it's a team sport because you have 52 other guys on that team. You have coaches, and I know that there are going to be some people that say, you know what, it's not just about Tom Brady. I get that, but the thing is, the bottom line is he was always the common factor on all of these teams. And you look at Tom Brady, and a guy like that makes the head coach's job better or easier. And I say that in the case of Bill Belichick for his time when they worked together with the Patriots. When your best player is your most dedicated player and your hardest worker, it makes it easier for the other players to fall in line. And the thing I think with Tom Brady, he was egoless. He always made sure to take less money so the team around him could give him the best opportunity to win. And that's what it was. That's what it came down to. Tom Brady always wanted to win. And like I said, it was a perfect storm for him coming to Tampa Bay last year, and of course, the rest was history as the Bucks got hot coming down the stretch, and we saw total and utter domination in the Super Bowl win last year over the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, you cannot talk about Tom Brady and not mention the Tuck Rule. You cannot talk about Tom Brady without mentioning Spygate or Deflategate. And I will say this, the Tuck Rule, the rule is there in place. But you know what? Sometimes better lucky than good. But I will say this, Tom Brady, throughout his time in Michigan, and you also saw it whether it was the Patriots or the Bucks, he was always a winner. And you can say whatever you want about the Tuck Rule. The bottom line is the guy wins. When it comes to Deflategate, that came out after week one of the or pardon me, Spygate rather, came out after week one of the 2007 NFL season. And the story did have legs. However, we saw the Patriots dominate every single team for the rest of the regular season. So obviously that put that to bed. And then of course, the Gate after the AFC Championship game in 2014 when the Patriots dominated the Indianapolis Colts. That story for me got put to bed when we saw Brady do what he did 2 weeks later in Super Bowl number 49. Because let's not forget, Tom Brady went up there and helped to erase a fourth quarter deficit against the best secondary in football at that time. So obviously, you could say whatever you want about balls being deflated, inflated, whatever you want to say. The bottom line is the man went out there and won, and he continued to win. And even at the age of 44 this past season, Tom Brady still led the NFL in completions with 485, passing yards with more than 5,300, and he also led the league in touchdown passes with 43. So obviously, the guy knew how to get it done. At least in our lifetime, we are not going to see another Tom Brady because, again, winning is so difficult. And he set the bar so high. I mean, we saw Bradshaw do it with four. And of course, that was during the 70s. We saw Joe Montana do it with four in the 80s. And that was a part of the Niners dynasty. Brady's dynasty extended. Obviously, before that, number one, you cannot look over the fact that the rules protecting quarterbacks have changed since the days of Terry Bradshaw, since the days of Joe Montana, Johnny Unitas, and the likes. So it's going to give quarterbacks the opportunity to play longer and have longer standing careers. And Brady made the most of that. But he adjusted, he adapted, he was he always, like I said, he was egoless because he always took less money in favor of helping the team. And now, even though he can still, like he showed us this season that he can still play at a high level, he's walking off into the sunset on his terms. He has no regrets for his career, and you know what? At the end of the day, you don't apologize for winning. The man went out there every Sunday, gave it everything that he had. You think about some of the great teams that he was a part of. You think about some of the guys that he played with, and more importantly, some of the people that he inspired and motivated out there. There will never be another Tom Brady. He did it for 22 years, and I think it's going to be a long time before we see anybody come close to replicating what we saw of TB12. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take the time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, signing off, saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.